You know, the Democrats' protest actually started before the president entered that chamber. The Democrats on the bipartisan escort committee, the group that walks the president in, did not show up for that job. You know, the president touted the almost 100 executive orders, the 400 executive actions in 43 days that he said restored common sense. He spent a pretty good amount of time, as you mentioned, going through the specifics of what was found in DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, singling out Elon Musk, listing the millions that were found in detail. And many of the Democrats held up signs saying Musk steals and false. But the best moment, emotional moment, was DJ, who's battling cancer. He wanted to be a police officer. And during the speech, the president said the Secret Service has made him an agent. Even in that moment, you know, the gallery was split. There was a major announcement on shipbuilding. And actually, during this speech, China announced a 7.2% increase in Chinese defense spending for this year. That's almost 15% over the last 2 years. He didn't single out China, but he did say they're close to a deal on Ukraine and Russia.
So we are back with our panel, Britt Hume, Dana Perino, Harold Ford Jr., and Larry Kudlow. There's also a letter from Zelensky, which we'll get to in just a moment. But, Britt, let's get your thoughts. This was the longest speech. He is now the record holder for the longest speech to joint session of Congress, beating Bill Clinton.
This was the most boisterous, the longest, the most partisan speech I've ever heard a president give in this kind of setting, and I go back about maybe 50 years on this. I also think it may have been the most effective. I mean, if you ever doubted that Donald Trump is the colossus, the political colossus of our time and our nation, this night and this speech should have put that to rest. The Democrats seem to be falling into trap after trap after trap as he recognized these people and celebrated the people he pointed to in the gallery and their stories, while the Democrats sat glumly on their hands through all of that. It was a terrible look. Al Green's attempt to disrupt the speech was a bad look for the Democrats. This was I think, politically speaking, this was pretty powerful stuff, as powerful as I think I've heard.
Let's listen in just a second as we hear them greeting each other.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Mr. President, that was a great speech.
That was
awesome.
Marjorie Taylor Greene with a hat that says Trump was right about everything, is the hat that she is wearing in the chamber there. Harold, your thoughts on the speech, Democrats' reaction, where we are?
I think that Britt nailed it. I'd say this to my party. We have to win on ideas. The disruption was not a good look for the Congress. And as passionate as the Congressman Greene may have felt, that was not the right moment to do that. The litany of things this president did during this speech, from the young man you mentioned, I think he even let a young man into West Point tonight whose family was there. He talked about police officers who had been slain and their loved ones who survive us. It was a far-ranging speech. It reminded me a little bit of the everyday people that we saw in Milwaukee, where they saluted and lifted up the stories and lifted up the heroism of those who have been so great to our country. He didn't really try to bring the country together with rhetoric. He really tried to bring the country together around stories about people. The real work will start tomorrow, and we'll see how it goes. But congratulations to the president tonight.
Dana, Democrats could have brought people together if they had stood up in some of those moments, which should be things that everybody can celebrate. But what really stood out to you tonight?
Well, at the beginning of the speech, he started off by saying, "There's nothing I can say that is going to make you clap for me." And then they proved him right. Now, many Democrats did not defend Al Green as he was escorted out. They didn't fight that. Many other Democrats left during this and went and did little videos. But I think that what it showed is that the Democratic Party still has no common sense. They have no ideas, and they have no heart. They couldn't even stand for the most inspiring moments of this speech.
Larry, there were multiple times where he talked about tariffs, and that's obviously a rocky road if you look at the markets over the last couple of days and people talking about it. In that, he said there will be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that.
Yes.
But I heard your reaction when he also talked about tax cuts and expenses for businesses.
Yes, this is such a colossally positive, upbeat. It's like America has no limit speech. And I love the fact that he's unleashing prosperity through tax cuts. In fact, he said we're going to make them retroactive to January 1st on the business investment side, which is going to be so well received by companies and the stock market tomorrow. And I think the tariff thing, Brett, you have to put it in the context of all the other things he talked about. He talked about drilling and liquid gold. Yes, the tax cuts. He spent a lot of time. We're cutting spending with Doge. He hit all those. He's sort of saying, look, we have an economic policy that is unlimited. We're going to carry the country forward. Whether you believe him or not, I think it was just an incredibly optimistic vision.
I loved it, Sean. It was not a speech for the mainstream media. It was a speech for the American people. And I'm sure it was received as well at home as it was there by the Republicans and the audience up in the gallery. It was really shameful what the Democrats did. I mean, they really, it was quite a spectacle. They brought shame on themselves and their party. But the American people are following what the president is delivering, and they are appreciating it, and we certainly did tonight in the chamber.
Mr. Speaker, the Democrats sat down the entire night. They could not even stand for that young man. They could not stand for Laken Riley's family. They could not stand for Jocelyn Nungary's mother. They couldn't stand for anybody. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime or Social Security. Do they stand for anything?
No, not even the terrorists that we've apprehended now that masterminded the disaster at Abbey Gate. It was really quite a spectacle. And if they're going to use a 77-year-old heckling congressman as the face of their resistance, then bring it on. But we're not going to tolerate that on the House floor. And I don't think the American people are going to tolerate that either.
Mr. Speaker, you're the Speaker of the House. What happens to somebody like Al Green when he pulls off a stunt like that?
Well, we escorted him off the floor. He couldn't behave himself. It's quite shameful. It brought shame on, I'm sure his constituents are not proud of that tonight. But I suspect that there'll be a censure resolution brought on the floor to discipline him. We have to do that inside the House. We have to maintain decorum. Yeah.
Yeah. The president laid out, too, a vision for the country. He not only talked about all the things that he did, getting out of the WHO, the Paris Accords, the UN Human Rights Council, et cetera, getting rid of the EV mandate, but he also, free speech is back, woke is dead in America, end of DEI, CRT, Doge. He spent a lot of time on the waste, fraud, corruption, abuse, and he went on and on and on about balancing the federal budget, passing tax cuts and reciprocal tariffs, the Laken Riley Act, protecting police officers. That's just off the top of my head about, what is shock and awe, I think, to this city where I am tonight. What's your reaction? And juxtapose it to where the Democrats are.
Well, the thing to remember is that all of that was accomplished in less than 50 days. Imagine that. He's accomplished more in this short period of time than most presidents do in a 4-year term. And as he said tonight, he's just getting started. We cannot wait to codify this. The House and the Senate will be working in lockstep with him in unified government. The Republicans have a mandate from the American people, and President Trump is using it. The Democrats don't have a leader. They don't have a vision. They don't have a platform they can run on. So all they can do is this, make it a spectacle on the House floor. But we're going to govern, Sean, and we're going to move the ball forward for the American people. And it is going to be a new golden age for America. And President Trump is leading it. And we are so excited to be a part of it.
Oh, I think it was a big night for the Republican Party. Will you have the votes to get this economic plan passed quickly? Which I would argue, anytime you're going to have an economic recovery, you need a little time for that recovery. Will that happen? And when do you think you can complete that in conjunction, obviously, with the Senate, which has kind of, more difficult rules and a process when you use reconciliation?
Yeah, we've laid out a very aggressive schedule. We passed the budget resolution last Tuesday night. The Democrats and the media said it couldn't be done, but the Republicans in the House stuck together and got it done. That opens the door for the reconciliation process and the one big beautiful bill that the president keeps talking about and we keep insisting upon. Yeah. Sean, we put it on a very aggressive schedule. We will get that done if we stick by that schedule by the end of April. The president will sign it into law in early May, and that will be enough time for the American people to begin to feel the effects of that before the midterm election in 2026. So economic help and recovery is on the way, and all these other promises are as well. We're going to deliver for the American people.
The president goes through all the Doge, waste, fraud, abuse, corruption. Then you think we have nearly $40 trillion in debt. Then you think the average American only makes $66 grand a year. Okay, it's unfair, and we're stealing from our kids and grandkids.
Sean, I couldn't agree more. That's the reason I came out from behind my desk about a year and a half ago, because I was just shocked what the last administration did to us. This is the biggest deficit that we've had when we're not at war and not in a recession. 6.7, 6.8% of GDP, and they just blew out the spending. And now President Trump has a plan to bring it down slowly, and it's what I call, we're going to reprivatize the economy. We're going to reinvigorate the private sector, shrink the government sector.
All right, so when I listen to people, and they usually tend to have a political agenda, and they hear him say tariffs. He says reciprocal tariffs, because we're already being, as he pointed out tonight, India, China, Canada, Mexico, the European Union, they all have massive tariffs on us. And is he not negotiating? Do they not, after all these years, know that Donald Trump's always negotiating?
He's always negotiating, but I think they also know he means it, that he'll pull the trigger. And
pulled it today.
Yeah. And look, I'm open to the idea that either the other sides can drop these big tariffs that they've got, they can drop them, or they know President Trump will put up the tariff wall, and then we'll see.
So look, I call him Little Justin Trudeau. He's got 42 million citizens in Canada. We have 340 million here. He wants to pick that fight. Who do you think's going to win? Who's going to get hurt the most?
Well, Sean, he's already a lame duck. He's dead man walking, and so I don't think anybody ever took him seriously. I think he's kind of dangerous. We'll see. And my guess is that next week, Mark Carney's the prime minister. He's a little more reasonable. We'll see.
It's simple. The president wants the borders secure. He wants free and fair trade across the board, nobody taking advantage of us. And the president would like fentanyl to stop coming into our country. If they do those three things, tariffs go away, and they get rid of their tariffs.
Yeah, exactly. So the current 25% tariffs are about securing the border, about fentanyl, and then on April 2nd, we're going to see the reciprocal tariffs.
Yeah, it's really not that complicated. You liking the new job? How do you like this swamp?
Well, I don't know about the swamp, but the cabinet's great. The president's amazing. Every day is...
He's a force of nature, isn't he?
Oh, my God. And
metaphysical force.
He's on a roll, and that speech tonight was incredible. And I think that...
I've known him 30 years. I think it's the best speech he ever gave.
I think it was fantastic. And the Democrats are flailing because you can't just be the resistance. You got to be for something. And they haven't coalesced. They have no idea what they're for. They're just against Donald Trump. And he continues winning, and they're just off balance. And he's in there every day for the American people.
Well, congratulations on your new position. We're looking forward. We got to turn this economy around as quickly as you can, get interest rates down, inflation down. I know you'll be a big part of that.
We do it every day.
Tonight was incredible. This is the 5th State of the Union address I've seen Trump give. It was by far his best. We're just over a month into it, and he had a litany of victories that we've already won, one after the other after the other. Listen, I thought he was joyful. I thought he was forward-looking. I thought he had the promise of America front and center. And I got to say the contrast. I have never seen such a disgraceful display as the Democrats put on. I've been to 13 State of the Union addresses altogether since I've been in the Senate. I've been to every one. I've never missed one. It started from the moment he walked in and was introduced, the President of the United States. Not a single Democrat stood, not a single Democrat applauded, not one. I've never seen that happen. Every time Joe Biden walked into that chamber and they introduced him as the President of the United States, I stood my butt up and I clapped. Every time Barack Obama walked in, I stood up and clapped. Even when I couldn't stand their policies, even when I was horrified at what they were doing, I respect the office of the President of the United States, and I respect the American people. The contempt those Democrats had, they wouldn't stand, as you noted, for the mom of Jocelyn Nungary. They wouldn't stand for Laken Riley's family. They wouldn't stand for the 13-year-old kid who survived brain cancer. They didn't stand for the young man whose father was a slain police officer, whom Trump admitted to West Point in the middle of the speech. They wouldn't stand for him. Even the Joint Chiefs applauded to the kid going to West Point. But you know what? The speaker got something slightly wrong. He said there was nothing they applauded for and stood for. That's not correct. There was one thing the entire night they applauded for, that we sent hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine. And they all stood and cheered that we sent money to Ukraine, but they will not applaud for America. I found it horrifying. More than once, I turned to the folks next to me and said, what the hell is wrong with these people?
What has happened? I mean, this is not the old Democratic Party. This is a radicalized party that is full of rage and hatred, and it was on display tonight. They look petty, they look small, they look diminished, they look defeated. That's what I saw tonight. And if they want to be the party of men, championing men and women's sports, they want to be the party of putting the rights of illegals over the safety of Americans, they want to be the party of endless wars, if they want to be the, the party of, hundreds of billions of dollars wasted abroad for their radicalism, I'm okay with that.
Look, you use the right word. It is rage and it's hate. I got to say, tonight, the Democrats also destroyed my favorite State of the Union game. So I actually came up with a game to myself. So what I like to do is look at the opposing party and see when they choose to clap. And it's actually fun. You would look at like a Joe Manchin, and they'd be like, America's good. And Manchin would stand up and applaud. And it'd be, we support our troops. And they'd kind of half stand and think about it. My game's gone because they don't applaud for anything.
So I think this explains sort of, I call the state-run media mob, but it's also the Democratic radicalized media mob. So was this a concoction of what, Chuck Schumer and the leadership and Hakeem Jeffries, and they said nobody's allowed to stand?
I don't think it was orchestrated. I think
really?
I don't know that, and they are a command and control authoritarian party, so it could be, but.
How do you not stand for mothers that lost their children? How do you not stand for a 13-year-old cancer survivor, or this young man who got into West Point, as you point out, or the mother of a slain officer? How do you not stand for these people?
Because, look, this party is in denial. They don't recognize the incredible mandate that came from Election Day. Al Green, from my home state of Texas, as embarrassing as that was, what did he stand up and disrupt the whole thing on saying, you don't have a mandate?
I'm going to impeach you.
I mean, it's utterly absurd. As the president rightly pointed out, he won all 7 swing states. Yeah. He won the popular vote. We won the Senate. We won the House. And no Democrat is recognizing that. Now, listen, I was very glad. You and I both know Alexis Nungary, Jocelyn's mom.
I've talked to her. I've interviewed her. I mean, I want to cry.
She and I have been on the show with you.
Together.
So Alexis
and you've been great, by the way, to that family. I think everybody at home needs to understand. You have done a lot, and I think a lot of what happened tonight was because of your hard work. Thank you for that, because she's this little brave 12-year-old girl who fought for her life.
Renaming the wildlife sanctuary after Jocelyn was beautiful. So Alexis Nungary was going to be my guest tonight, and I invited her, and she was coming, and then the president invited her, and I was very glad to have her sit with Melania instead. And actually, Elliston Berry, who was
By the way, she will be joining us in a few minutes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Elliston Berry, who was sitting right next to Melania. She is the 15-year-old girl from Texas who was victimized by deepfake porn.
Right.
The legislation that the president referred to, the Take It Down Act, is my bill. I wrote it.
Yeah.
It's my legislation that passed the Senate 100-0. And yesterday, the First Lady came to the Senate and did a roundtable with me and with Elliston, this 15-year-old girl who's really stood up and showed incredible bravery. And I was really proud the president called on the House to pass the Take It Down Act. I told both Elliston and Francesca Monti, who's another 15-year-old girl from New Jersey who was similarly a victim, I told both of them, we're going to be in the Oval Office for the signing ceremony. You're going to get one of the pens the president uses to sign this, and you're going to protect other teenage girls and women across the country. I hope also that Alexis Nungary is in the Oval Office for signing the Justice for Jocelyn Act that requires that illegal aliens who are apprehended be detained and kept in detention. That would have saved Jocelyn's life.
It was truly an honor, a very surreal feeling to be sitting in that area to remember the life that Jocelyn had. I found it very cowardly that a lot of the Democrats didn't stand, didn't clap, didn't do anything to support anything that Donald Trump is trying to do as president to make this country better. It was very shameful to the Democrats.
You know, I mean, this is your precious 12-year-old girl. And I looked at Laken Riley's mom, and she's tearing up and she's fighting back tears. And we see this 13-year-old young man who became a member of the Secret Service with Sean Curran tonight, the new head of the Secret Service, which was a really special moment. This young man makes it into West Point tonight. All these incredible Americana optics that anybody with a heart, mind, body, and soul would love. Your little daughter fought off these brutal, vicious, vile, evil attackers. I can't even imagine how she did. And I know, well, my faith tells me I know where she is, and I know you will be with her again. But if they can't stand and applaud you and stand up for the right of innocent people like your daughter, what does that party stand for? I found it repulsive.
They don't stand for anything humane. They don't stand for us as citizens. They don't stand for our security. They don't stand for honorable things that we need in this country. And it's very disgraceful to us as U.S. citizens that those are the people that we have here in Congress and House and Senate. It's disgusting.
I don't think you ever thought you'd be involved in politics. I don't think you ever thought you'd lose your daughter. But I think now you probably have a good sense of how politics works here. How many times, for example, have you met and spoken with Donald Trump? And did you ever hear from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris?
I have met and spoken with President Donald Trump several times, and every time has been very humane, very fatherly, very caring, compassionate. And I've heard zero effort, zero of anything from the Biden-Harris administration.
Yeah, not one time. They never picked up a phone call. How, you know, people can only try to imagine what you feel and being in your position. You never overcome something like this, do you?
No, the pain doesn't go away, the hole doesn't fill. It just, you learn to deal with it more, but I am clinging on to my faith in Christ and Jesus, and He is who's getting me through with His strength.
Amen, Alexis. We're praying with you and for your daughter. Thank you so much for being with us.